There's a quiet whisper that often gets lost in the cacophony of daily life, a subtle but persistent call to something more. It's the voice that questions the relentless pursuit of external validation, the one that wonders if the endless parade of comparisons truly leads to fulfillment. You've likely heard it. Perhaps it surfaced during a moment of quiet reflection, or maybe it emerged as a gnawing dissatisfaction, a feeling that something fundamental is missing despite outward appearances of success. Many people navigate their lives under the illusion that their worth is tied to what others think, to how well they fit into a mold crafted by societal expectations, or to achieving milestones that were never truly their own. This belief, that our value is a commodity to be earned through external approval, is one of the most pervasive and damaging illusions of our time. It's a subtle form of captivity, one that drains our energy and diverts our focus from the very source of our potential. The truth, however, is far more empowering. True freedom, genuine success, and a life deeply rooted in purpose begin not when we chase the opinions of others, but when we turn our gaze inward. It's about shifting from a posture of seeking validation from the outside world to one of cultivating strength and clarity from within. This journey isn't about becoming oblivious to the world or disconnected from humanity. Rather, it's about reclaiming your focus and directing your most valuable resources, your time, your energy, your attention, towards the construction of your own life, your own character, your own destiny. For too long, countless individuals have squandered their potential by fixating on the paths of others, measuring their own progress against benchmarks that don't belong to them. This incessant comparison is a mental trap, a thief of joy and ambition that systematically erodes any possibility of authentic greatness. From our earliest years, we are subtly conditioned to look sideways. What does the neighbor have? How does that person dress? What did my classmate achieve? This dynamic, this constant measurement of our own worth against the perceived achievements of others, is precisely why so many people never reach their full potential. Instead of building their own unique edifice, they spend their precious energy scrutinizing the blueprints of others. And the most heartbreaking aspect of this cycle is its relentless nature. There will always be someone younger, faster, wealthier, or seemingly more fortunate. As long as you remain ensnared in this invisible competition, true peace and the clarity needed for profound growth will remain elusive. To truly move forward, you must break free from this chain of comparison and redirect your attention inward. This means asking yourself different questions. What can I improve today compared to yesterday? What discipline do I need to cultivate? What habit must I shed? The only competition that truly matters, the only benchmark that holds genuine significance, is the one you have with yourself. Your personal progress is the only valid measure of success. If you are more disciplined today than you were yesterday, if you are stronger this year than you were last, if you are advancing steadily toward your purpose, then you are winning. The opinions of others begin to fade in importance when you realize that your own evolution is the only true parameter. This doesn't mean becoming indifferent to the world or dismissing others. It means ceasing to live for their approval, freeing yourself from the exhausting need for external validation to feel sufficient. It's a difficult truth for many to accept. People are far too absorbed in their own struggles and insecurities to scrutinize you as closely as you might believe. They are caught in their own fears, their own battles. Yet, millions of hours are wasted trying to appease an audience that barely registers their presence. Shifting your focus inward liberates you from this immense burden. It transforms you into an individual who doesn't require an audience to move forward, because you possess an unwavering clarity about your direction. When you commit to focusing on yourself, you discover that your time is your most valuable asset. And this leads to another fundamental principle. Every moment spent criticizing, observing, or envying others is a moment stolen from your own growth. The disciplined individual pays the price of disengaging from fruitless comparisons, channeling all that energy into what is within their control, their habits, their thoughts, their decisions. This investment compounds over time. While the average person dissipates their strength in distractions, you advance, solid and unwavering, step by step. Do not wait for external approval to validate yourself. Do not allow the mirror of others' opinions to dictate your path. Life is far too short to spend it explaining every decision, justifying every action, or seeking permission to become the person you are truly meant to be. Focusing on yourself is not selfishness, it is profound responsibility. No one else will bear the weight of your failures, build your dreams, or live your days for you. The burden is yours, and so too is the profound glory of achieving your aspirations. Remember this with absolute clarity. The person who constantly compares themselves is destined to lose, for they measure their life by rules that do not belong to them. The person who focuses solely on themselves is destined to win, for they are not seeking to surpass their neighbor, but to surpass themselves. This is the fundamental lesson of a life lived with intention. It is about leaving behind external gazes and discovering that the only direction that truly matters is inward, towards your purpose, towards your discipline. This is where true power begins to awaken. The second crucial step in cultivating an unshakable inner focus is confronting and dismantling the pervasive fear of external judgment. So many individuals remain paralyzed, not by the impossibility of their dreams, but by the phantom specter of what others might think if they dare to stumble. What will they say if I fail? What will they think if my attempt falls short? How will they perceive me if I venture into the unknown? This insidious, invisible fear acts as the most formidable prison, one that individuals construct around themselves. The profound irony, however, lies in the ephemeral nature of these dreaded voices. Today, they may dissect your actions. Tomorrow, they will have forgotten your misstep, far too preoccupied with scrutinizing someone else's endeavors. Yet, countless souls surrender their aspirations, squander their vital energy, and even compromise their very identity out of apprehension for criticism that possesses no genuine weight or lasting consequence. Focusing solely on yourself necessitates learning to quiet these external voices. It's not about their disappearance, but about their cessation of control over your trajectory. Every significant decision you face should be prefaced with a self-interrogative. Does this path move me closer to my ultimate purpose, or am I merely performing for someone else's gaze? If the latter resonates, you are betraying your authentic self. Embracing this truth, this self-directed course, carries its own price. It may involve disappointing certain individuals, distancing yourself from others, and enduring an array of negative commentary. Nevertheless, each time you choose to honor your vision over succumbing to external critiques, you forge a more resilient character and ascend to a state of profound personal liberty. The cost of this inward orientation also mandates a conscious relinquishment of the incessant craving for approval. We inhabit an era where an individual's perceived worth is frequently quantified by fleeting metrics like digital affirmations, follower counts, or public acclamation. Yet, none of these external markers guarantee genuine or lasting success. External validation is inherently volatile, subject to the whims of public opinion, and ultimately, profoundly fragile. Today, you might bask in applause. Tomorrow, you might be relegated to obscurity. The individual who commits to internal focus consciously chooses to divest themselves of this addictive need. They exchange the urgent demand for immediate accolades for the quiet, deeply satisfying reward of consistent, daily progress toward their chosen objectives. This act of renunciation, while challenging, as the innate human desire for acceptance is powerful, represents the singular pathway to an inner fortitude that remains impervious to the ebb and flow of external regard. Furthermore, you must cultivate the capacity to accept that many of your deliberate choices will not be readily understood by the masses. When you resolve to rise earlier than others, to dedicate yourself to more rigorous work, to save diligently while your peers indulge, or to invest thoughtfully while others prioritize immediate gratification, you will inevitably encounter perplexed stares, perhaps even subtle mockery. The majority often fails to comprehend those who dare to live with explicit purpose, primarily because they themselves have never embarked on such a journey. And here lies the critical distinction. You do not require their comprehension, you require their respect. True respect, however, invariably emerges in the wake of demonstrable results. Initially, they may critique your path. Subsequently, they will inquire about the methodology behind your success. This reciprocal dynamic represents a fair exchange, a price that every man committed to his own ascent must be prepared to pay. Hold this truth firmly in your mind. Your life is not a possession of others' opinions. It belongs intrinsically to you. The moment you grasp that others will not shoulder your failures, nor truly celebrate your triumphs, nor walk your path for you, you will unlock an immeasurable reservoir of freedom. To focus solely on yourself signifies achieving a profound clarity. Your inner voice possesses a power far exceeding any external clamor. When you master this inner attunement, when you learn to advance with unwavering conviction, even when surrounded by criticism, you become an individual virtually unstoppable. The third vital step in mastering self-focus involves a profound reevaluation of your most finite and valuable possession, your time. The average individual expends an astonishing amount of life force on activities that do not, in any meaningful way, propel them toward their deeply held aspirations. This often manifests as an unthinking agreement to commitments that drain rather than energify, an eager acceptance of invitations that offer no genuine benefit, and a descent into pointless debates that serve only to dissipate mental energy. The inevitable outcome is a life characterized by incessant busyness, a constant flurry of motion, yet ultimately devoid of authentic purpose and impactful achievement. Success, true success, remains perpetually out of reach for those who scatter their temporal resources in a futile attempt to please everyone. It is, conversely, the reward bestowed upon the individual who possesses the discipline to prioritize, to fiercely protect each passing minute as if it were a precious gem. This necessitates mastering the art of the firm, guilt-free no. Every time you acquiesce to something that does not genuinely contribute to your growth or your goals, you are implicitly making a decision to not advance your own life. This is often one of the most challenging decisions to make, as the pervasive fear of appearing selfish, distant, or unfeeling can be a powerful deterrent. However, the stark reality is this: focusing on yourself is not an act of selfishness. It is a profound act of self-respect and a necessary commitment to your overarching purpose. If your ambition is significant, if your vision is expansive, you simply cannot afford to dilute your finite time with the inconsequential. The initial discomfort of learning to decline will undoubtedly be present. Many will question your choices, perhaps even challenge your motives. Yet, the liberation that washes over you when you realize that each no to the superfluous is a resounding yes to what truly matters is transformative. Furthermore, a critical component of this temporal mastery is the deliberate organization of your life around clearly defined priorities. The common individual frequently conflates mere activity with genuine productivity. They appear to be working incessantly, rushing from one task to another, feeling utterly depleted, yet making little discernible progress. The individual who is mastering self-focus, however, commits to the disciplined practice of planning, of establishing concrete objectives, and of structuring their days with an unwavering focus on the essential. This level of meticulous organization may not possess an immediate outward allure, but it is precisely this habit that distinguishes years of wasted effort from a life replete with tangible accomplishments. Each hour strategically invested in paramount activities becomes a tangible step forward, a solid increment toward realizing your ultimate purpose. True advancement also necessitates a resolute renunciation of incessant distraction. Social media streams, the relentless churn of news cycles, superficial conversations, and ephemeral entertainment are constant temptations, insidious thieves of precious time and potent energy. To truly focus on yourself, you must be willing to make sacrifices. This means consciously choosing to disengage from the endless scrolling that adds no value, silencing the devices that fragment your attention, and diligently training your mind to concentrate on that which actively builds you up rather than wears you down. This is undeniably costly, demanding a significant degree of self-mastery, but it serves as the essential filter that separates those who ascend from those who remain mired in mediocrity. Lastly, and perhaps most crucially, you must grasp that focusing on yourself requires protecting your energy with the same rigor and vigilance that you would protect your financial resources. Your energy is not an endless commodity to be casually distributed. You cannot afford to squander it on unproductive environments or individuals who systematically drain more than they contribute. The conscious act of choosing to surround yourself only with that which fortifies and uplifts you is paramount. This may necessitate making difficult decisions, potentially losing certain friendships or distancing yourself from particular social circles. However, the incalculable gain is an unwavering concentration, a crystal-clear focus, and an abundant reservoir of strength to relentlessly pursue your path. Remember this fundamental truth. Your time and your energy are the currency with which you purchase your future. If you dissipate them in the service of pleasing others, you will possess nothing substantial for yourself. If, however, you consciously invest them in your purpose, you will cultivate a life of depth and accomplishment that the vast majority will never even glimpse. Focusing solely on yourself is not an act of isolation from the world. It is the deliberate construction of the unshakable foundation required to ultimately conquer it. The fourth imperative in cultivating unwavering self-focus is acknowledging that your personal development is not a passive event, nor is it a responsibility that can be delegated. It is, unequivocally, a daily investment, a proprietary endeavor that only you can undertake. Many individuals perpetually await external catalysts, a shift in circumstances, a stroke of fortune, or a benevolent benefactor to unlock their doors. They exist under the comforting, albeit illusory, banner of eventual rescue or external propulsion. However, the unvarnished reality is that the trajectory of your progress is inextricably linked to the quantum of energy and intention you personally allocate to self-enhancement. The individual who diligently prioritizes their inner landscape willingly incurs the cost of diligent study during periods of widespread distraction, commits to physical conditioning when complacency beckons, and rigorously hones their mental faculties when the allure of mental dross is pervasive. Each sun that rises and finds you dedicated to your own cultivation is another invisible brick laid in the foundation of an existence far removed from the ordinary. This commitment demands a profound and unwavering discipline in the realm of learning. Observe the average person. Their academic pursuits often cease upon the completion of formal schooling, predicated on the misguided notion that they have attained a sufficient level of knowledge. Conversely, the individual dedicated to internal growth embraces a posture of perpetual humility and consistent application. They understand that the acquisition of wisdom is an unending process, that there is perpetually a skill to refine, an insight to uncover, a lesson to integrate. They actively seek out knowledge through books, absorb wisdom from seasoned mentors, and meticulously study the journeys of those who have navigated the very paths they aspire to tread. This proactive stance automatically distinguishes them from the general populace, for while others stagnate, they continuously evolve. Another unavoidable cost associated with this inward focus is the conscious renunciation of the immediate gratification derived from external recognition while you are actively engaged in your silent maturation. True, deep-seated growth is rarely a spectacle, nor is its impact instantaneously perceptible. It is often a quiet, at times monotonous, and frequently solitary process. To focus intently on yourself means willingly enduring hours where no accolades are bestowed, where your incremental advancements go largely unnoticed. Yet, these are precisely the hours that precipitate genuine transformation. What appears imperceptible today will invariably form the bedrock of what becomes impossible to overlook tomorrow. Furthermore, this commitment necessitates the cultivation of habits that fortify your being, even in the absence of any compelling internal desire. This encompasses rising early, meticulously organizing your daily activities, adhering to a disciplined approach to nutrition, diligently conditioning your physical form, and exerting control over your mental landscape. These habits come at a cost, primarily because the siren song of comfort invariably whispers the antithesis. However, each instance you succeed in upholding these practices, you are making a profound statement of self-respect, an undeniable declaration of your commitment to your own burgeoning greatness. Now, consider how this applies when you face periods of doubt or fatigue. The individual who understands the principle of self-investment doesn't succumb to inertia. Instead, they access their internal reserves, drawing on the discipline they've previously cultivated. They recall the progress they've already made, the small victories that pave the way for larger ones. This internal reservoir of resilience is built not by chance, but by conscious, daily effort. It's the difference between reacting to external pressures and proactively shaping your internal landscape. This continuous self-investment also means actively guarding against the passive consumption of information that offers no tangible benefit. While entertainment has its place, an over-reliance on it, especially when it diverts from essential self-improvement, becomes a detriment. The disciplined individual allocates their leisure time judiciously, perhaps choosing to read a book that expands their understanding rather than mindlessly scrolling through social media. This is not about deprivation, but about conscious allocation of resources. Your growth is the most critical project you will ever undertake, and it demands your most focused attention and your most deliberate investment. When you dedicate each day to strengthening yourself, you are not merely passing time. You are actively constructing a future self capable of achieving things the ordinary individual can only dream of. While others may dissipate their energy observing the lives of others, you are diligently investing in the one venture guaranteed to yield returns, the continuous refinement of your own being into its most potent and authentic form. The fifth foundational pillar in the edifice of self-focus is the profound understanding that your inherent value is not contingent upon external acquisitions, but rather upon the deliberate cultivation of your inner character. Many erroneously equate focusing on oneself with amassing material wealth, seeking widespread acclaim, or attaining a lofty social status. This, however, represents a fundamental misinterpretation. True self-focus is not about accumulating external symbols. It is about fortifying the internal architecture of your being. For genuine success, the kind that endures and resonates, originates within your identity, not in the superficialities of your outward presentation. Should you falter in your self-respect, consistently break your commitments, or neglect the development of robust character, any external achievements will inevitably crumble. Conversely, when you dedicate yourself to nurturing discipline, upholding unwavering integrity, and strengthening your inner fortitude, all other desirable outcomes tend to manifest as natural consequences. A significant aspect of this demanding yet liberating path involves consciously relinquishing reliance on emotional dependence from others. The prevalent human condition for many involves an unshakable attachment to the need for external affirmation, love, or recognition. Their emotional equilibrium often fluctuates based on how they are treated, the words spoken to them, or the extent of their acknowledgement by others. This inherent dependency renders individuals susceptible to manipulation, essentially enslaving them to the whims of external opinion. The individual who has truly embraced self-focus cultivates a profound independence. They learn to become their own ultimate validator, acknowledging their achievements even when no external applause is present, and affording themselves respect without the incessant clamor for public acclaim. This form of emotional autonomy not only bolsters personal resilience, but also significantly enhances one's attractiveness and trustworthiness, as it projects an aura of self-sufficiency. Furthermore, this journey necessitates confronting and disengaging from the corrosive habit of economic and social comparisons. There will invariably exist individuals who possess greater financial means, more ostentatious possessions, or outwardly project a more pronounced level of success. Allowing yourself to be consumed by these comparisons is a direct route to pervasive frustration. Embracing self-focus means recognizing the distinctiveness of your personal journey and understanding that the only true wealth that matters is that which you consciously construct through purpose and unwavering discipline. While financial stability is undeniably important, it should serve solely as a tool, not as the definitive metric of your intrinsic worth. The individual who has successfully redirected their focus inward no longer measures their personal grandeur against the yardstick of others. Instead, their true measure is the extent of their personal evolution, the tangible progress they have made relative to their own past selves. Another critical element within this framework involves the establishment of firm, unyielding boundaries with those who attempt to manipulate your decisions or subtly steer you away from your chosen course. Individuals will continuously test the limits of your resolve. Some may seek to exploit your valuable time, others your financial resources, and still others your vital emotional energy. The person who lacks self-focus tends to be easily swayed, succumbing to the pressure to agree to everything, ultimately leaving themselves depleted and exhausted. Conversely, the individual who cultivates self-respect proactively erects clear boundaries, understanding precisely when to decline, when to create distance, and when to safeguard their inner sanctuary. While such resolute boundaries may, at times, lead to the estrangement of certain individuals, they invariably draw you closer to those who genuinely value your essence and respect your path. Finally, this commitment to internal concentration demands the diligent construction of a personal vision so compelling and clearly defined that it functions as an infallible compass. When your aspirations are crystal clear, the distracting noise of external criticisms begins to lose its potency. The insidious nature of comparisons diminishes in relevance, and the need for external validation transforms into an insignificant concern. This profound clarity serves as an indispensable shield against self-doubt, acts as a powerful propellant during arduous times, and consistently reminds you of the intrinsic worth of your journey, underscoring precisely why the associated sacrifices are so profoundly justified. Remember, this relentless focus on your own growth and development is not an act of selfishness. It represents the highest form of self-regard you can possibly cultivate. Because when you fortify yourself, when you imbue yourself with discipline, and when you elevate your self-respect, everything you subsequently build will possess an enduring solidity and an undeniable authenticity. While others remain tethered to the anxious gaze of the external world, you will be charting a course guided by unshakable conviction, not by the ephemeral approval of others. And this, my friend, is the very essence of true power. The sixth and final step in mastering an internally focused life is understanding that the energy and value you ultimately offer to others must first be rigorously constructed and solidified within yourself. Many individuals mistakenly believe their worth is derived from constant giving, perpetual people-pleasing, and an unwavering availability to all who seek their attention. This often leads to a state of profound exhaustion, as they become entangled in resolving the predicaments of others, shouldering responsibilities that are not theirs to bear, and carrying burdens that were never meant for them. In this selfless and ultimately misguided pursuit, they invariably neglect their own nascent aspirations, their developing disciplines, and their own future well-being. To truly focus on yourself is to accept the indispensable necessity of prioritizing your own foundational strength before aspiring to give outwards. You simply cannot construct anything of lasting substance for others if the bedrock of your own life remains unstable. This fundamental shift necessitates mastering the art of energy preservation. The typical person often finds themselves immersed in inconsequential discourse, ensnared in toxic social environments, or interacting with individuals who extract far more than they contribute. A pervasive sense of guilt can arise when contemplating disengagement, or a fear of adverse social repercussions if a polite refusal is uttered. However, the individual who cultivates genuine self-respect understands the value of willingly enduring the discomfort of releasing that which actively erodes their vitality. They develop a keen awareness for identifying environments that sap their strength and consciously seek out those that actively replenish it. This often involves cultivating smaller, more potent social circles in lieu of vast, superficial gatherings. While this deliberate selectivity might not always be the path of least resistance, it is precisely this discernment that safeguards them from the slow, insidious attrition of a life lived in constant depletion. Furthermore, this inward orientation requires diligent training in the capacity for solitude. A significant portion of humanity finds the experience of silence deeply unsettling, primarily because they have not yet discovered who they are in the absence of external stimuli and constant engagement. They crave the incessant hum of activity, the unwavering presence of companionship, and the external validation that confirms their existence. The individual who is truly focused on themselves, however, pays the price by bravely confronting their periods of solitude, transforming these moments not into voids of emptiness, but into powerful instruments for profound personal growth. Solitude, when approached intentionally, is not a sign of isolation but a fertile ground where clarity of thought flourishes, inner convictions are solidified, and the often overlooked inner voice can finally be heard amidst the usual external clamor. This mastery over one's inner space cultivates an unshakable equanimity, rendering one less dependent on external validation for a sense of completeness. Crucially, the discipline of self-focus involves learning to direct your attention with absolute selectivity. Every instance you allocate your awareness to observing the actions or achievements of others, you simultaneously divert energy and attention away from your own critical trajectory. Each hour surrendered to comparison represents a direct forfeiture of momentum on your unique path. The disciplined individual trains their mind with the precision of a laser, fixing its beam firmly on what is essential and fiercely defending it against the encroaching tide of irrelevance. This capacity for uncompromised focus stands as one of the most potent and valuable assets in the pursuit of significant achievement, and it can only be truly honed when you consciously decide to sever ties with external distractions and commit to an unwavering concentration on your internal landscape. Finally, you must internalize the understanding that this disciplined focus on self-improvement ultimately amplifies your capacity to contribute meaningfully to the lives of those who depend on you. When you first build a robust foundation of personal discipline, cultivate abundant internal energy, and forge an unyielding character, you are then in a position to offer genuine, impactful value to others. However, if you prematurely exhaust yourself by attempting to please everyone before fortifying your own core, you will inevitably find yourself empty, incapable of sustaining either your own life or the lives of those who look to you for support. Remember, dedicating yourself to yourself is not about abandoning the world. It is about constructing yourself to such a degree that your life becomes an exemplar, a beacon of disciplined achievement rather than a cautionary tale of unfulfilled potential. While others may continue to live in a state of perpetual drain, striving to appease external demands, you will stand empowered, having made the profound choice to prioritize yourself first. This is, unequivocally, the most significant act of self-respect you can undertake, an investment in your own resilience that ensures you become a force that cannot be easily diminished or broken. The seventh stage in your journey toward absolute self-focus is the courageous act of decisively severing the instinct to compete with others. The prevailing human tendency is to become ensnared in an invisible, relentless race. Questions like who possesses more wealth, whose vehicle is more prestigious, who achieved their goals faster, dominate the mental landscape. This perpetual competition, however, offers no genuine satisfaction. It invariably leaves one feeling hollow, for there will always be someone perceived as having surpassed you. Such a mindset transforms life into a futile chase, a perpetual game where the feeling of inadequacy is the only constant outcome. The individual who has learned to anchor their focus internally chooses to disavow this absurd race. They transmute external comparison into the far more potent engine of internal self-improvement. Their ambition is not to outshine their neighbors, but to continually transcend their own previous limitations, and in this fundamental reorientation, they discover an unparalleled freedom. This profound shift necessitates mastering the art of measuring your own success against your unique criteria. The majority of people define success through the lens of societal dictates, a specific income bracket, a particular social standing, or a widely recognized level of achievement. Yet, these external benchmarks are, in reality, shackles disguised as aspirations. The man who truly respects himself establishes his own definitive standards. He asks himself, am I evolving? Am I moving purposefully towards my objectives? Am I living in alignment with my deepest values? When the answers to these questions are affirmative, the pronouncements of others lose their power, for his life now possesses an unassailable internal direction. This independence from external arbiters of worth demands courage, as it requires a willingness to diverge from the conventional mold, but it is precisely this courage that forges authenticity. Another crucial layer involves learning to genuinely celebrate your own accomplishments without the insidious habit of comparing them to those of others. The common individual, upon reaching a milestone, often diminishes its significance by noting that someone else achieved it with greater fanfare or speed. This self-defeating mentality actively sabotages progress. Committing to self-focus means recognizing the intrinsic value of every forward step, regardless of its magnitude or whether it attracts external notice. Each stride taken in the right direction, each habit consistently maintained, each day you refuse to surrender, these are genuine victories. And the act of acknowledging and celebrating these triumphs fuels the momentum to continue the ascent. Furthermore, this path requires embracing the conscious renunciation of the constant, often unconscious, need to demonstrate your worth to the world. A vast number of individuals expend considerable energy attempting to impress, to showcase their achievements, and to convince others of their capabilities. However, this persistent drive to exhibit oneself often betrays an underlying insecurity. The man who has cultivated true self-focus has no pressing need to prove anything. His actions and their resultant outcomes speak for themselves. He lives and works for the fulfillment of his mission, not for the ephemeral applause of an audience. This serene self-possession can be disarming to those ensnared in the pervasive obsession with external validation, transforming a man who requires no external affirmation into an object of genuine respect and admiration. Finally, this inward orientation demands a willingness to endure the discomfort of perceived difference. When you consciously choose to abandon the competitive mindset, to cease seeking the approval of others, and to proceed at your own deliberate pace, you will inevitably be labeled as eccentric or unusual. This is a price that the majority is unwilling to pay, the price of accepting and even embracing being distinct. Yet, what few comprehend is that this very distinctiveness is the key that unlocks the door to an extraordinary existence. Mediocrity, by its very nature, thrives in the collective. True greatness, conversely, is almost always a minority pursuit. Remember this principle with absolute certainty. You are not required to participate in anyone else's race. Your singular, most significant rival is the person you were yesterday. When you cease the futile comparison with others and channel your energy into outperforming your former self each day, you will unearth a reservoir of strength that elevates you far beyond the common herd. This potent force, born from the wellspring of your authentic being, is what ultimately renders you incapable of being overlooked. The eighth imperative in your quest for focused self-mastery lies in skillfully dismantling the pervasive weight of external expectations. Often, it's not outright criticism that hinders progress, but the subtle, pervasive burden of what others implicitly or explicitly deem you should be doing, thinking, or achieving. Family, friends, societal norms. Each contributes to a chorus of opinions dictating your career path, your life choices, your financial trajectory, and your ultimate goals. The conventional individual, susceptible to this chorus, often bends to these expectations, driven by a potent fear of disappointing those around them. Conversely, the person committed to genuine self-focus willingly incurs the cost of disappointing others in order to avoid the far more profound disappointment of betraying their own inner truth. This is a significant sacrifice, one that requires acknowledging the impossibility of fulfilling everyone's desires. However, it is precisely this willingness to disappoint that liberates you to live in alignment with your authentic reality. This deep dive into self-prioritization necessitates an unshakable clarity of purpose. If your direction remains undefined, any external voice, however well-intentioned, can act as a potent agent of diversion. A vacuum of direction creates fertile ground for external expectations to take root and exert control. The disciplined individual, in contrast, dedicates time to introspection, posing uncomfortable questions, and engaging in brutal honesty to solidify precisely what they aspire to achieve. When your vision is sharply defined, external pronouncements lose their power to confuse. You can absorb opinions, certainly, but you will filter them through the unwavering lens of your own established purpose, never allowing them to become your master. Furthermore, this journey inevitably involves learning to coexist with the constant presence of judgment. Regardless of your choices, there will invariably be individuals ready to critique. If you exert significant effort, they may label you as obsessive. If you embrace rest, they might deem you indolent. If you amass wealth, they may attribute it solely to luck. If you falter, they will readily declare you incapable. There is simply no winning within the confines of others' perceptions. The self-focused individual, however, pays the price by cultivating the fortitude to accept that judgment is an unavoidable constant. Understanding this reality liberates you to act with unburdened conviction, free from the paralysis of trying to appease every critic. Another inescapable consequence of this intentional path is the realization that living with such a focused internal compass will inevitably lead to the recalibration and sometimes severance of certain connections. There will be those who drift away because they cannot tolerate witnessing your growth, whose own complacency is challenged by your discipline, or whose insecurities are amplified by your emerging success. While the departure of these individuals can be painful, it is a necessary aspect of this transformative process. Each person who steps back creates essential space for those who will genuinely propel you forward, who will respect the integrity of your chosen path. Do not harbor fear towards these separations. Instead, embrace them with gratitude. They serve as natural, albeit sometimes difficult, filters, guiding you towards an environment that actively supports and strengthens your journey. Finally, embracing self-focus demands the rigorous training of a mind that operates with profound emotional and practical independence. You cannot perpetually rely on others to ignite your motivation, to extricate you from challenges, or to provide constant guidance. Your ultimate source of strength must originate from within. Each time you choose to act without seeking outward approval, each instance you uphold your discipline when external support wanes, each moment you press onward without the specter of an audience, you are actively paying the price for your burgeoning independence. And although this independence carries a substantial cost, it is the very cornerstone of becoming an individual of unshakable substance, an entity incapable of being easily swayed or broken. Remember this fundamental principle. Others will perpetually hold expectations of you, but only you alone will bear the ultimate consequences of the choices you make. When you consciously elect to disappoint external desires rather than betray your own core truth, when you commit to living in unwavering fidelity to your purpose, even if it generates discomfort, and when you willingly pay the price of walking your path without reliance on others, you transcend mere focus. You become unequivocally free. The ninth crucial step in mastering the art of self-focus is to relentlessly dominate your internal dialogue, recognizing that nothing so effectively derails your intended trajectory as a mind perpetually preoccupied with external noise. Consider the typical individual's morning ritual. The first conscious act is often to immerse themselves in the digital currents of what others are broadcasting, to ponder the opinions others might hold, and to fret over the expectations others have seemingly placed upon them. This fractured mental state transforms you into an invisible slave, not living your own life, but merely observing and reacting to the lives of others. True self-focus, therefore, necessitates a deliberate investment in training your mind, consciously directing your thoughts towards stimuli that fortify rather than fragment your resolve. This requires an unyielding mental discipline. Each time your mind begins to drift toward comparison, toward criticism of others, or toward an unhealthy fixation on their perceived successes or failures, you must gently but firmly redirect it. Remind yourself, with unwavering conviction, that your sole imperative is the constructive development of your own unique path. This mental training is not an ephemeral event. It is a continuous, daily endeavor, often silent and unseen. The price of this commitment involves a vigilant guardianship over the information you consume, the thoughts you habitually entertain, and the narratives you allow to repeat within your consciousness. For what you consistently repeat solidifies into deeply held beliefs, and those beliefs, in turn, sculpt the contours of your destiny. Furthermore, this commitment demands an active renunciation of engagement in futile disputes. The average person often expends considerable energy attempting to assert their viewpoint, to win arguments in conversations that yield no progress, or to defend positions against individuals whose minds are firmly closed. The man who has embraced the principle of self-focus, however, masters the power of strategic silence and judicious withdrawal. He consciously opts out of battles that do not contribute to his growth, recognizing that his internal validation does not require external affirmation. He prefers to channel that same precious energy into advancing towards his own defined objectives. This self-control is what sets him apart. While others deplete their reserves in trivial skirmishes, he steadily cultivates his own essential foundations. Consequently, embracing self-focus involves accepting absolute accountability for your life's unfolding narrative. Many individuals default to rationalizations, attributing their stagnation to external forces, the actions of parents, the demands of employers, the dictates of government, or the vagaries of the economy. This pervasive victim mentality acts as an invisible tether, permanently binding them to their limitations. The disciplined individual, however, confronts the often uncomfortable reality that their current circumstances, both positive and negative, are the direct consequence of their own accumulated decisions. This ownership, while potentially heavy, is profoundly empowering, as it eliminates the crutch of excuses and instills the understanding that if you are the architect of your challenges, you are inherently also the solution. Finally, this inward focus necessitates the construction of robust emotional defenses against the insidious, often invisible comparisons that silently erode self-esteem. Every time you internalize a narrative such as, "I'm not good enough, they have already accomplished so much more. I am falling behind," you are injecting a subtle poison into your own self-perception. The price of truly focusing on yourself involves actively dismantling these detrimental narratives and systematically replacing them with an internal dialogue grounded in unwavering discipline and burgeoning confidence. You are not striving to surpass anyone else. Your singular, vital objective is to embody a superior version of the person you were yesterday. Remember this fundamental truth. The individual who effectively governs their thoughts is ultimately the one who governs their life. As long as your mind remains captive to the echoes of external discourse, you will continue to live a life dictated by the agendas of others. However, the moment you diligently train your mind to anchor itself firmly on your purpose, your personal evolution, and your deliberate decisions, you cultivate an unassailable inner resilience. This mental fortitude, while demanding significant sacrifice and continuous practice, is what elevates you far above the ordinary. For the most critical battleground is never external. It is invariably within the landscape of your own consciousness. The 10th step toward a life truly focused on your own potential involves a profound understanding that the existence you ardently desire will only materialize when you elevate your core purpose to the absolute zenith of your priorities, irrespective of the surrounding environmental clamor. The prevailing norm for many is a yearning for advancement, yet their gaze remains perpetually fixed on peripheral distractions. They are easily swayed by the pursuits of others, pause to absorb external criticisms, and become paralyzed in the relentless pursuit of approval. In this state of hesitant anticipation, precious time, vital energy, and ultimately, life itself, are irrevocably squandered. The individual who embodies genuine focus, however, actively cultivates an invisible barrier, a sanctuary separating them from the cacophony of the external world. They move through life with an unyielding clarity, requiring no entourage, seeking no validation, and remaining impervious to diversion. This elevated state of focus is inherently uncommon, precisely because it demands sacrifices that the vast majority are unwilling to sustain. Yet, it stands as the singular pathway to a life that transcends the mundane, a life of remarkable distinction. This ultimate sacrifice necessitates a radical transformation of your very identity. It transcends mere incremental adjustments. It demands that you consciously evolve into an individual who consistently upholds elevated standards as a permanent way of being. You must become someone who honors their word even in solitude, who maintains their discipline when applause is absent, and who consistently chooses the necessary discomfort of growth over the alluring comfort of complacency. This metamorphosis is profound because it compels you to systematically relinquish the persona of your past self, paving the way for the emergence of the individual you possess the latent potential to become. This rebirth, however, is not a singular event. It is a continuous process, enacted daily through each deliberate choice you make. Furthermore, this path demands the conscious acceptance of solitude as an intrinsic and vital component of the journey. Focusing intensely on your own development will inevitably lead you to diverge from circles where you once comfortably belonged, to release relationships that no longer resonate with your evolving vision, and to face the possibility of being perceived as an outsider. This experience of self-imposed or circumstance-driven isolation can carry a sting of discomfort. Yet, it is precisely within this crucible of solitude that an unyielding inner strength is forged, and the clarity that sets you apart is meticulously honed. The average individual actively shuns this discomfort, consequently remaining stagnant. Conversely, the one who embraces the cost of focused self-development endures, perseveres, and ultimately discovers that this solitude was not an empty void, but the very ground upon which their character was transformed into an unyielding bedrock. Finally, you must indelibly etch this profound truth into the very fabric of your being. Focusing solely on yourself does not equate to neglecting the broader world. Rather, it means ceasing to dissipate your essence within it. It signifies a deliberate decision to no longer measure the worth and trajectory of your life by the yardstick of others. It means relinquishing the incessant pursuit of external validation and eradicating the wasteful expenditure of energy on pointless comparisons. It represents taking unequivocal command of your destiny, wielding the reins with unwavering firmness, and diligently constructing each passing day in silent dedication. It embodies a deep, abiding respect for your core purpose, placing it above all external considerations. This, then, is the ultimate price, the conscious shedding of dependency on the external world and the bold embrace of becoming the absolute architect of your own existence. Recall this truth with absolute certainty. The external world will perpetually present noise, criticisms, distractions, and a myriad of expectations. However, none of these external forces will hold any sway if you have mastered the discipline of focusing solely on yourself. Because when you operate from this state of profound internal clarity, the surrounding noise transforms into a focused silence. Criticisms become potent catalysts for further refinement, and perceived isolation transmutes into an inexhaustible wellspring of strength. This is the singular secret that distinguishes the common individual from those who achieve true greatness. The former remain tethered to the perpetual observation of others. The latter cultivate an unwavering concentration on their own unfolding journey. And it is these few, those who willingly pay the price of absolute focus, who ultimately attain realms of achievement that the vast majority will never even glimpse. Reflecting on this journey so far, we've journeyed through the intricate landscape of internal redirection, observing how the subtle art of shifting focus from the external periphery to the internal core reshapes our very perception of possibility. It's akin to adjusting a powerful telescope, not to find new galaxies, but to bring our own inner cosmos into sharp, brilliant focus. As we've navigated the terrain, the recurring theme isn't about erecting walls, but about cultivating a discerning garden, tending to what nourishes our growth while gracefully pruning what hinders it. The accumulated understanding suggests a profound recalibration, a deepening of what constitutes genuine strength and authentic progress. In light of these insights, the path forward reveals itself not as a series of external conquests, but as a deliberate cultivation of inner terrain. The seeds of potent transformation, once scattered by the winds of external validation, now find fertile ground within the protected enclosure of self-awareness. This internal shift doesn't negate the existence of the world around us. Rather, it fundamentally alters our relationship with it, transforming us from reactive observers to proactive architects of our experience. The energy once dispersed like light through a prism, scattering into a spectrum of external concerns, now converges, amplified, into a laser-like beam directed toward a singular, powerful purpose. Drawing these convergent threads together, we see a clearer picture emerge. The constant hum of external validation, the subtle pressure of comparison, the draining obligation to meet unspoken expectations. These are the whispers of a life lived in borrowed light. True luminescence, however, emanates from an internal source, a self-ignited fire fueled by discipline and an unwavering commitment to one's own unfolding narrative. As we pivot towards the final contemplation, the implication is that the most profound victories are not those celebrated on public stages, but the quiet triumphs of self-mastery, the silent affirmations of an inner resolve that has been painstakingly built, brick by disciplined brick. This foundational work, this dedicated cultivation of the inner self, is not merely preparation for the future. It is the very essence of living a life of unassailable integrity and enduring power, setting the stage for an ultimate declaration of self-possession. And so, we arrive at the culmination of this profound introspection, a point where the echoes of our journey converge into a singular, resonant truth. You stand at the threshold of a self-defined existence, no longer a mere passenger navigating the currents of external expectation, but the confident captain charting your own course. The relentless pursuit of applause, the draining specter of comparison, the silent burden of others' desires, these have been acknowledged, understood, and gently released. What remains is the bedrock of your being, the unshakable foundation of your own authentic self, now illuminated by the unwavering light of your own inner conviction. This is not an endpoint, but a profound beginning. The discipline you've cultivated, the clarity you've embraced, the courage you've summoned, these are not finite achievements to be filed away, but living principles that will guide your every step. The true practice begins now, not in grand gestures, but in the quiet, daily dedication to the person you are becoming. It's in the small decisions, the consistent habits, the unwavering commitment to your own evolving truth. You are not merely the sum of your past efforts, but the architect of your future self, armed with the profound realization that your greatest power lies not in pleasing the world, but in honoring the unique, unrepeatable masterpiece that is you. This is the genesis of a life lived not in reaction, but in purposeful creation, a testament to the enduring strength found when one finally turns the lens inward. The world will continue to spin, its rhythms dictated by 1,000 external forces. But you, now anchored in your own resolute center, will move through it with a newfound grace and an unyielding resilience. The opinions of others will become like distant clouds, observable but incapable of obscuring your internal sun. Your journey is now a testament to the extraordinary power that resides within, a power that has always been there, waiting to be awakened. Embrace this sovereignty, this freedom born of self-discovery. Live it fully, authentically, and with the unwavering belief that your most magnificent creations are yet to unfold, born from the soil of your own unwavering focus.